All right, Natalie, I have to say, we're all busy mamas here, and there's one thing that we all need, and that's sleep. So I have just been really looking forward to this conversation because as I entered into motherhood, that was one of those things that really went away. So thank you so much for hopping on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Yes, I was just telling you, I wish that I had found out about you prior to my son being born. So I feel like if there's a number two, then I'm set for life. But for those people that are like me and need to find you now or really like yesterday, can you just give us a little bit more info on who you are and what you do?
For sure. So my name's Natalie Zaun. I am first and foremost a mama to three little girls and a wife to my husband, Mike. We've been married, what is it, 2025? So almost 6 years. Had to do the math. And we have three little girls. I have Ella, Audrey, and Quinn. And my journey to kind of becoming a pediatric sleep consultant is very unconventional. I actually, years ago, I majored in musical theater in college, so completely different. Moved to New York after school and lived there for 6 years and did that professionally. And after 6 years, I was kind of at like a fork in the road where I knew I didn't want to stay in New York. I knew I was kind of done in that sense of that type of career path, if you will. And so I had a few friends who lived in the Chicago area and I picked up and I moved there. And then from moving and living in Chicago, that's where I met my husband. But I got heavily involved in my local church. I became a worship leader there, but I did a lot of missions trips. And my heart was really always with little ones. I loved working with children. It's something I grew up volunteering and doing, and really going on a couple missions trips that really kind of set it in stone for me. And so I came back and I was like, how do I work with children? Because I know I'm not meant to be like a full time missionary. So, how do I do that? How do I support the kids and work with children here? And I'm a bit of a like I love school. I like nerd out over things. I was always the kid that loved school. So I was like, I'm gonna go back to school and get my master's because if I do anything, I want to do it 150%. And so I got my master's in special education. And at the same time that I got my master's, I was pregnant with my first, and COVID hit at the same time. So COVID hit, the world shut down. I had my first child and I was like, well, I'm not going back to work. Like there's no way I'm going to like I can leave her when like the world is like this. And so I stayed home. I was a stay-at-home mom and I loved it. It was wonderful and I had another baby after that. And then I started getting like an itch of like I want to do something more. Not that motherhood, and I say this with the caveat that not saying that motherhood was not fulfilling enough, but I loved being able to have something that was just mine as well. And I knew how isolating motherhood can be. And that's something that I experienced, especially during my first. And so I joined a local church group and I met a wonderful, wonderful dear friend of mine who actually owns a pediatric sleep consulting business with her and her partner. And long story short, loved her, loved the idea of what she did, loved the flexibility, but loved that I also got to work with families one on one. When I was a special educator, that was one of the most important pieces of what I did is I got to work one-on-one with these families. I got to know them on a more intimate level. And that's something that I really wanted to do, but in a completely different way. And so it kind of just fell into place. I got my training and my certification and it kind of just led me to where I am now. And so I've been a certified pediatric sleep consultant for 3 years now, and it's been so cool.
What a fun journey. It just sounds like you've been able to really travel the world and explore all of your different passions. And what's interesting is they all kind of build upon each other because, like little ones, you talk about your theater background, like little ones, especially in motherhood, require entertainment. And you learned that on these mission trips that you were really connecting with these little ones as well. And I'm sure that some of your theater background like helped you connect with them at that the little children, like innocent level there as well. It just brings all of that childhood joy back again.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
But I really relate to what you were talking about as far as like becoming a mom. And I don't relate to it as far as like the whole pandemic area because I didn't have a child there. But that alone would be very isolating, I can imagine. Because we were all just like locked down in these tiny boxes for what felt like years because we're still not fully like back to where we were
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Um, so I came from the corporate world myself where I did have this career, and when I became, there's a whole story there, but long story short, I became a mom and I had experienced a layoff while I was pregnant. And I never really thought that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. So it was one of those where I was kind of thrust into it and I embraced it. But there was still something like I loved being a stay-at-home mom, but there was that itch too to have something of my own. And I it's okay if like there's not that itch, but I also think that if you do have it, you have to listen to it because it's just going to get itchier and itchier.
Yes.
And then it's going to become like unbearable at that point. Like there's a calling for a reason.
Right.
No matter like what you believe, like I feel like we have to listen to that like inner guidance and our intuition or like that higher power that's telling us like you need to go in that direction. And it sounds like you were placed in a situation where it just made sense, where you were able to bring in your expertise from when you got your master's in special education and take it to that next level to be able to like surround yourself with other parents so you can kind of get that social fix that you're looking for, but also help the children at the same time.
100%.
Yeah, it sounds like a beautiful marriage of everything there.
It was
So,
great. Yeah, it was fantastic.
so tell us a little bit about this practice that you stumbled upon while you were at church.
Right. So, it's called Parenting Practice of Colorado, and Lindsay and Paige are both the co-owners of it. They're two incredible women and mamas. And they actually met during their training and certification, and that's like how their friendship blossomed. They both are in the Colorado area. And so that's how they started, and they kind of grew. As you know, with any whenever you're starting off any business, it takes time to like kind of get things going and everything. But they started, I believe they started taking people on the year I joined. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember, but they started taking some women on who are interested in also kind of um, learning and educating and getting certified and trained, because you do go through a certification course, but we are all independent contractors. So going through the process, I utilize my husband. My husband's in finance. I Bless him. I don't know anything about that. I was really good with numbers, like really good with math back in the day, but I mean, I just haven't used that in forever. So my husband was really good in like in operations and that type of stuff in strategy when it comes to business. And so I had to form my own LLC. I had to figure out all of those things, which I mean, I had like a contract I actually had to sign, which is I've signed contracts many times as a performer, but it's a very different one when you're like signing as an LLC or signing on to something. So there was that aspect of it. And then a lot of it was um, really, I feel like that battle of that imposter syndrome where like I felt like I knew what I was talking about, but also it's like, wait, I'm now equipped to tell people what to do. Like this is wild to me. And so it was a humbling experience, and confidence definitely had to be built, I think, through it. But I just tried to remain as genuine and consistent throughout the entire thing. And if anything, and this is very much so like in the education world as well, but if I've learned anything, is every single child, every single family is completely unique and completely different. And so my approach and my philosophy behind what I do is figuring out who that child is and then supporting the family to the best of their ability. And that has been really transformative because it's allowed me to create these personal relationships with these families that I probably wouldn't be able to get in a normal circumstance. They leave feeling equipped and empowered and stuff. And so it kind of it was an interesting for like way of kind of coming into it because it was a learning curve for me too. And it still is, but it's been I mean insurance, like I had to get insurance. I was like I've never had to get insurance like in this type of insurance before. So like things like that, you're just like, huh, there's a lot I don't know, but I'm learning.
Well, good for you for moving forward despite not knowing what you were doing because when I was starting my business, I didn't know, I still don't know what I'm doing. I just
Right.
like, you just fake it till you make it. You make moves, you make bold moves. And my mom is a retired CPA. So I understand like being around the person that's like really good at finance, but like, you're like, why can't some of that rub off on me? But thank you for being so smart at what you do. But when you were talking about this, I was thinking, what an amazing opportunity, because I think especially when we're thinking about starting your own business, you obviously got your own LLC, but some people think they have to do it completely alone. And that's not the case. Like, you were able to kind of tie yourself to another company that allowed you to be able to kind of work through some of that imposter syndrome as you're building your confidence, like building up that clientele, and have that umbrella support to be able to go to for questions and things like that. So I think that's a really good thing for everyone to listening to be able to understand. It's like, it's not all or nothing. Sometimes you can still have your own business because technically you do, but you're under that larger umbrella. So it's an additional level of support and also brand recognition for your clients.
Right. Yeah. It's such a wonderful team. It's a women-owned business. And they've become, I mean, we're collectively really supportive of each other. I think there's now 5 or 6 of us total. And it's a wonderful place to be a part of. And like you said, we're independent, but we work collectively as a group and we support each other, especially if there's, interesting or tricky cases or questions that we have. It's a really wonderful work environment, even though we're also all in different places. And that's the other thing about this practice is I've helped people internationally. I've helped people in New York. I've helped people in California, Colorado, Texas, everywhere. So most of like what we do is remote. And so we're able to reach and access a lot more people, or especially specifically moms that need support. But we're also based, like as a team, we're based all over the place as well, which is kind of cool.
Well, then let's touch on that, because I obviously want to get into the how behind what you're doing and some tips for our listeners, but I also know that you're a stay-at-home working mom. So you're juggling these 3 girls and a business at once. So how are you doing it all?
Sometimes not well. I always joke, like for someone who preaches about how important sleep is, like I need to get much better at that. Because most of the time I work at night. Like I work with when my little one is sleeping. My third is when she naps. I work at night. Like I'll take calls at night and stuff. A lot of like the social media content that I do, a lot of that creation I do at night because it's uninterrupted time. So it's a balancing act right now. And I think so Ella is my oldest and she will be 5 in June. Audrey is my second. She will be 3 in July. Quinn just turned 1. So they're all young and they still need like a lot of attention. I think it'll be a little easier once it's nicer in summer outside and I can just like go play. But they still need mom. And for me, it's really finding that balance of, okay, when am I working and when am I mom? Because when I am mom, I want to make sure that I am the best version of myself and I'm showing up the way that I want to be. And when I'm working, I want to do the same exact thing. And so that has been tricky to kind of navigate. And I don't think I've mastered it yet. I think it also ebbs and flows, right? Like everything with life. But a lot of like when it comes to at least conversing with clients, I will do that during nap time. Like that's when I allow my calendar to be open. And then Fridays is a big one. My husband doesn't work Fridays. He works 4/10s. So that honestly is like a huge blessing because that's like my catch up day. And I'll take a lot of calls there. I'll do like a lot of recording then. And then it's a lot of nighttime and it's just kind of when I can, I'll get up early. That has also been huge for me is having me time too, because even though I'm exhausted, it's really important for me. It starts my day off right. I get in the headset of like, okay, I'm mom. I have to support my clients. It allows me to have a moment for myself. I have like a ritual every morning that I do where I get up, my girlfriend and we virtually work out together via Peloton. We schedule classes at the same time. And so we're accountability partners and everything. And then I actually get myself ready every single day because I am far more productive. And this is just me, right? Every person's going to be totally different. For me, I have to put makeup on in order to have a successful day. Like I will feel sleepy the entire day if I don't have makeup on. And that's just me. That's me. It's like making my bed. I have to make my bed every single day. So there's little things that I've done to set myself up for success for the day, even if it doesn't go according to plan. And I think having multiple children has also really lessened my type A-ness a little bit. I've always been pretty type A in the sense that I love plans, I love schedules, but having multiple kids and realizing like I literally have no control over anything has like I'm now like an A minus, maybe B plus mom. You know what I mean? So like there's flexibility and stuff like that. But I think it's a lot of different things that kind of breed into how successful I am throughout the day. And some days everyone's emotional. I've got three little girls. So like some days it's just like total chaos and that's just how it is. But I think being able, and this is something that this is a goal of mine for this year, is being able to designate like work time versus non-work time, like mom time, husband time, whatever it is, that I need to get better at. So that's one of my goals. So come back at the end of 2025 and ask me if I've actually done that.
I relate to that because I'm just like I only have one at this point, and he's 19 months as the time we're recording, so it's a little bit different, but close in age to Quinn. But it's one of those things where I have one day a week where my mom's able to come in and help. But other than that, I'm literally sometimes taking connection calls on the playroom floor while
Right.
my son is like in like destroying whatever is
Yep.
behind me. And you
Right.
just have to make it work. But the nice thing about what you and I are building is that we're building it for like we're our clients are our ideal, like they're doing it too, essentially. So if anyone's going to understand, it's them. So I think that's one of the beautiful things. It's like you're showing up as yourself and you're making it work when you can. And sure, could we get more productive and like more strategic in some areas, but you gotta make it work with where you are. And what I've learned is that there's seasons of life, and this is just the season that I'm in and you're in. And it's like one day our kids will get to the point where they're going to be all in elementary school or beyond, and we will have that more structured routine. But right
Yeah.
now, that's not our season.
Right.
So just making it work with what we've got. But
Exactly.
I liked what you said about me time because I have to say, I haven't been very good about doing that for myself. And part of it, I'm a naturally early riser, but this is what we're going to talk about today is that I'm a naturally early riser, but my son proved to be an extra early riser. So he was amazing at sleeping through the night. He would sleep through the whole night, but he's finally outgrown this. But he would wake up anywhere from like 4 to 4:30, sometimes 5 in the morning every day. And I was like, I'm sorry, there's no way I'm getting up at 3 o'clock to have some me time. And I know, again, this is why I said at the beginning, I wish I had found you earlier because you're so relatable. I know that there's ways to have given myself some me time, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's like as
Totally.
the mom, especially as we're building businesses, like we have to take care of ourselves first because if we don't, then there's nothing left to give. Like we set the tone for the household. So I think that's really important. It's to realize that our children's sleep has a huge effect on us. And so we need to take care of ourselves to be able to make sure this whole unit
Yeah.
runs smoothly. So long story short,
Yeah.
like let's dive into like how you're able to get this me time because with three girls, all different ages, all different schedules, there's a strategy to it.
Right. And I think it's so I could nerd out and talk about sleep all day long because I'm fascinated by it. I love it. I love child development. I just love learning all about that stuff. But if you look at what happens to our bodies. So usually when there's the early risers is one of the top things that I hear from parents all the time. They're like, "Oh, my kid's just he wakes up every day at 4:30 or 5 a.m. and that's just when we start our day." I would love for him to get to sleep till, 7 a.m., but I just know that's not him. And so, yes, there are some kids who are going to be naturally wired to rise a little early. However, I always designate morning time anytime between 6 and 7 a.m. That is a hard morning time. So if it is prior to 6 a.m., we are not saying good morning. We're not opening the windows. We're not starting our day. Now, there's different ways depending on where your child is and what they need and what could be possibly going on. And I could go into a whole like gamut of what that is. But I mean, look at daytime sleep, look at naps, look at consolidation of nighttime sleep. Are there other wake ups? Look at bedtime. Bedtime is usually a big culprit, but really also that first nap. If that first nap of the day is too early, that's going to set their internal clock to rise at that early time over and over again. So there's things that you can look at, but what happens biologically in our body is around that 3, 4, 5 a.m. mark, we're in a lighter stage of sleep, especially if your child is, call it around or after that 3, 4, 5 month mark, they have matured into the 4 sleep stages that we experience as adults. And so because they experience light and deep stages of sleep around that time, our melatonin production starts to shut off, our cortisol starts to kick in, our body is naturally getting ready to start the day, and we are in lighter stages of sleep. And so if you have a little one that likes to rise and wake up during that time, and especially if we as parents go in there and say, okay, let's start our day, that is going to internally solidify their internal body clock, their circadian rhythm. So that's at least for like the little kid, like the baby, toddler, preschooler perspective of it. But for us, and this was even before I became a sleep consultant, I was fascinated with sleep, everything with child. And so I read every book, I studied every methodology before my first was born. And so we did a methodology, and it was not technically what I now do. I wasn't educated in this type of method. And it was a struggle. She was a fantastic sleeper, but it was a struggle. And there's just a lot of nuances that you don't realize until you've kind of gone through training and kind of look at the picture as a whole, right? And so she was still a great sleeper, but we started from day one. And I think I was a pretty anxious mom as a first time mom. And I was like, this is the type A, right? Where I was like, I have to follow everything to a T in order for me to be successful. Like to me, there was like a calculation. If I did this and this, then this would happen and she would sleep. I was petrified of not having sleep because I know how it makes me feel. And especially in that postpartum stage where I experienced postpartum anxiety for the first time. And I was like, didn't even realize that's what I was experiencing, but not having sleep completely amplified that. I struggled to nurse with her. And so I got up every 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours for 7 or 8 months to exclusively pump.
I did too.
It is props to you because looking back, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, why would I sacrifice? Like, I was not showing up as the best version of myself, but because I thought I had to do this. And so I think there's like also that narrative that's strung into like, well, I should be able to do this. I'm a mom. Like, I'm not like, this is what my body should do. And I want it to do it, but it's not doing it. And anyways, so there's like that whole other aspect of it. But Ella was, she was a struggle. We had to triple feed her and stuff. And so there was a lot of sleep deprivation. And then I quickly realized how important sleep was. Then I had my second, realized she was a completely different ballgame. She struggled significantly. She had really bad reflux. So if you have a baby that's had reflux, like it is just painful to hear them cry. Like it is different. It's a different experience. And not feeling like I knew what to do to support her. And so that's also when I started becoming a sleep consultant. So it was good timing because then I learned and I was able to support her in the way that she needed. But again, we set really, really healthy habits from day one with her. Now, Quinn's not to play favorites by any means, but I didn't have to sleep train her at all. And I think a lot of this had to do with a couple of different things. One, I knew what I was talking about this time around. Like I had a ton, like way more education than I even knew. I had experience, right? Like I knew I had experience not just for my 2 kids, but all of the clients and the families that I've been able to work with. And I was also way more chill. I think that really helps too. Like if I'm getting good sleep, my baby's going to get good sleep. And if we're getting good sleep, then I'm going to be able to show up as the best mom as I can. So really, I think a major proponent of it was starting these healthy sleep habits from day one with all of them. Even though all 3 of their journeys looked completely different, they're all really good, solid sleepers. And we started at 7 p.m. bedtime, 7 a.m. wake up time from the day that they were born. especially in those early ages where they don't know the difference between day and night, right? I kept on their feeding, making sure that they were in that sweet spot of wake windows. I know wake windows can kind of get a lot of beef, but I swear it's the secret sauce to maintaining healthy sleep habits and not getting into over tiredness, which is sleep debt. The more sleep debt you acquire, the harder it is for your little one to sleep. And so, because we did that from day one, I think that really set us up for success. And my husband just did what I told. He's like, "I'll just tell me what to do. I don't know what you're doing, but just tell me what to do, and I'll do it." And so, yeah, it was a completely different experience for each one, but we were able to set these healthy sleep habits up. And then, as they grow older and they get into toddler beds or their big kid beds and stuff, having clear expectations of when you can get out of your room and when you can't. And so having firm but loving boundaries is really important as they kind of age as well. So kind of long way around to answer your question, but really healthy sleep habits from day one. Now, this is to say, if you haven't done that, that is okay too. You're not like you can't it's not like you can backtrack or you're just SOL. That's not the case. You can always start implementing these healthy sleep habits. But I think that's just what made our kids so successful.
And like you said, I believe that kids also feel energy. Like, so if we're anxious, then they're going to feel it. So
100%.
like
Yeah.
with Quinn, you've already been around the block twice already. So it was one of those things where you knew what you're doing, you were confident. We were talking about confidence earlier. So bringing that back into the conversation, like you were confident in your abilities as a parent and your abilities to be able to make sure that she could sleep through the night. So she automatically just like felt that and was able to naturally do that. Now, what's interesting, you're talking about wake windows. When my son was born, like we followed them to a T. Like we were flexible because we weren't like, oh, it has to be like on the minute. Like, but I would say people always hated me, but they're like, oh, is he like a fussy baby? No, he wasn't,
Yeah.
because he wasn't overly tired. Every
100%.
single need was met. He ate on the clock. He like before he was asking for it. We anticipated his needs before they happened. So while he was an early riser, which I now know after following you, like and having this conversation, I know that was my fault, and it's because he was waking early, and you talked about that early that first nap is so important. When he was waking up early, I would go there and I'd get him, and part of it was I was trying to let my husband get some sleep, so I'd go get him, and then that would wake me up, and then we'd start our day, and then he'd be down for his first nap at 8 o'clock, which is basically when other kids are just getting up
Right,
sometimes.
right, right.
So our entire thing was off. So his rhythm's much now better than it was. But to your point, it's never too late to start. So you were talking about like my son's 19 months now. I could still sleep train him, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. I work with kids anywhere between newborn all the way up to 12 years of age. Um,
12.
yeah. So up to 12 years of age. And we work with, I mean, I've worked with I would say most of my families and my clients are in that baby, toddler, preschool age range, but we do support families all the way up there. But I will say it's not your fault. Please don't blame yourself. You don't know what you don't know,
We
right?
don't.
And so it is not your fault at all. And here's the thing, you were doing exactly what you needed to do. You met him where he was. You were providing the support that he needed. And you were being the best mom that he needed at that time. And so that's just give yourself more credit, please. I know it's so
I'll say. I'm an early riser myself, so I would actually prefer him get up early than stay up late. So selfishly, I was like, but if I push it, I don't want to have him be a late riser because my husband can stay up all night, and like that is not me. Like I am early to bed, early riser. So I'm like, please don't be like my husband as far as staying up all night. You have to be on my schedule so we can do things
like,
together.
call me ready. I'll be up with you. Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Sure.
Now, before we pressed record, there was something that you said that I really want to make sure we touch on. And you alluded to it here, but there's no kid, because you're talking about your stories of your three girls, not like there's no playbook. Every single kid is so different. And I think that's really what we as moms sometimes need to understand, is that we're inundated with all of this information about what we kind of quote unquote should do. But I know for you, it's really important to be able to recognize that there is no one size fits all. Like So I definitely want to dive into that a little bit because that really resonated with me.
Yeah, I think that's really so I became a pediatric sleep consultant just because I loved working with families. I believed in the importance of sleep. I saw how transformative it was for my family and other families. But really for from the past couple of years of doing this, it has turned into so much more than just good sleep. I think we're at a really interesting point in history where social media has become such a strong influence, right? And I think it can be really beneficial in some aspects where it connects you, it does educate you, it can create community in a sense. At the same time, I see a lot of fear mongering tactics, and it is very disheartening, especially as a mom, because if you're looking at like the parenting, sleep training, if you say sleep training, it's like red flag to a lot of people, right? Like there is this narrative behind sleep training that is really detrimental. It's filled with guilt, it's filled with shame towards other moms. And I think the tactics that are being used are not supportive. And so, really, like my whole passion project, if you will, behind this is to empower moms. Yes, dads are important too, but really, like, we are the ones that birthed our children. We are the ones that go through all of these wild, crazy hormone transformations, right? Like, we are the ones that are not saying that dads aren't. I shouldn't say this, but like, my husband worries about my children, but like, he's not up in the middle of the night being like, oh my gosh, which method should we use? Did I damage my child because I didn't give her the choice of the blue or the red cup today? You know what I mean? Like, it's different. It's just to be completely
We're
blatantly
wired differently. That's what it
yes.
comes down to.
100%. And
Yeah.
so my passion was really being able to empower moms and come at it from a perspective of, listen, if what you are doing is working, that's wonderful. You don't have to change a thing. You don't have to do anything I'm telling you to do. Anything I supply or give out or share on the internet, on Instagram specifically, because that's really the only app I know how to use. I'm definitely a millennial in that sense,
Me
where
too.
I don't know anything else. But if that like if I'm just sharing information, take it for what it's worth. And everything that I do is coming from a place of um here's the education that I have. Here's the training that I have. And if it works for you and your family, wonderful. If it doesn't, that's okay. I think when it comes to really the fire that kind of fueled me is I have so many moms that call me and that come to me that are like, I am so scared to sleep train my child because I feel like it's going to damage our bond. It is going to ruin my child because they've heard on the other flip side of if you do this, you're hurting your child. If you do this, you're going to like, they're going to deal with repercussions later on in life. And it is just not true. Now, there are many different methods to do this, right? And so you have to find one that works for you and your family. And that's really what kind of fuels me now and kind of why I took more of an interest to social media because I felt so much of that. If you do this, you're a bad mom. If you do this, you're failing your child. And I got to a point where I was just like, no, we're done. Like, I am a small, very, 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 very small person here. Like, my reach is very, very minimal, you know, in that sense. But if I can reach at least one mom and let her know that she's doing a great job, that what she is doing is totally fine, and you are not damaging your child, then I've done my job. And that's really what my heart behind all this is just empowering these moms to feel like they can support their child, but also support themselves. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And I think
100%.
that is, um, we're fed this idea that you have to sacrifice everything for the sake of your child. If you keep doing that, there's going to be nothing left to give. And so I'm all about looking at the family as a whole, specifically the mom as a whole. And so it's supporting the child as much as it is supporting the mom. Um, and that's kind of just that's my little spiel, my flag and everything
I'm here
here.
for it. I'm here for your TED Talk for sure. Now, it's interesting because you use the word flexibility in there. Like, obviously, you're creating these systems and schedules for these families that are flexible to their unique needs. And I know I had heard of obviously sleep training prior to like going into it, but that was one of my hesitations because one of my good friends in my life was one of the first in our little friend group to have her kids, and like you was suffered from like postpartum anxiety. So she was very, very regimented to the point where it had to be at the exact like specific minute, and they had to do it the exact same way every single time, and they could never leave their house. And it was like years that I watched this, and I it worked for her, and I know that made her feel better. So I think to each their own, but I think that was the example that was shown to me. So I was a little hesitant personally to do that because I said like I don't want to be tied down to the minute. I want to be able to be flexible, which I'm very routine as it is. So like the reality is like it would still be routine regardless of like the occasional outlier days and things like that. But that was kind of my hesitation there. So I think hearing you say that like it's not a one size fits all, that every single family is taken into consideration and their unique needs. I think especially as you introduce more kids to the mix, that gets a little bit even more complicated here. So I know like even if you're on kid 3 going on to kid 4, like it's not too late to start and like really help with this entire family because the dynamics are going to shift.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I love that.
Uh, I'm so glad we had this conversation today. I honestly could continue to like dive into the deep like statistics for forever because I think this is so fascinating. But I think the moral of the story is also that moms, we need to take care of ourselves too. And that's equally as important as taking, if not more important sometimes, of taking care of the children because, like you said, we can't pour from an empty cup. So I'm sure someone is listening to this right now and just like cannot wait to get their hands on just your world and all this information. So where could they go and find out more?
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, Natalie Zaun, Zaun. Um, and yeah, I share at least one tip probably every day. But like the reality of like the chaotic motherhood is also there too. So like if you're looking for the sleep tips, if you're looking for suggestions and stuff, that's I'm here for you. But if you're also just looking for like a mom bestie in your corner to be like, "Oh yeah, my house is also a mess right now," or "Yeah, I spilled coffee down my shirt too." I'm here for you. Like I live in this beautiful chaotic world of three little girls, and it's just I think it's important to show the real and, polished and not so polished all the time, right? I'm a happy mix of both.
Well, and that's what I related to first was like the mom mode that you brought to the table. One of my favorite things, I think it's stories that you put this on, not a reel, but like you'll pop on in the car while you have the camera on with your girls in the back. You're putting on lipstick and you guys are singing some like show tune from some musical. And that to me is just so fun because my son is like I said 19 months now and he's not singing these with me, but I am like ultimate like I'm quirk all the way, like
Yeah,
so quirky. So like
100%.
I love that you're having these moments with your kids and you're showing that because it's relatable to me. Like I'm for sure going to do things like that with him.
I love it.
So
Yeah,
and
that's our morning pump up. We do it every morning. I've got all three girls in the car, and the essentials are I have my lipstick, I have coffee in a real mug. That's like what I love coffee in a real mug. I am not a to go. I live on the edge a little bit. Real Mug Club is like kind of what we like deemed it as. And then a good tune, a good some sort of good music. I am a music person. I was a singer growing up. This is just it's music's in my blood, and it can instantly shift your mood,
yes,
right? And so
100%.
I'm all about it.
Yeah, all the
And if you can hear my children in the background, there's my
all the
second.
positive vibes.
There's Audrey. So yeah, we keep
Love
it.
it.
It's real here. Then that's not all together.
We're here for it. So I always like to end with one last piece of advice. So if a woman's listening today that is either an aspiring entrepreneur or relatively new in their own entrepreneurial journey, what
Mhm.
would you tell her today?
Take the chance. Take the chance and just try. I mean, life is way too short to wonder what if, and resentment builds. Take the chance and find the village or the community that can support you through it. Like whether or not if it's just like a high five or a thumbs up or whatever, take the chance and surround yourself with good women. Good women.
Well, again, go ahead and give Natalie a follow at Natalie Zaun on Instagram. So thank you, Natalie, so much for joining today and
Oh,
talking
thank
all
you.
things sleep and motherhood.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was so nice connecting, and I appreciate you so much and what you're doing.
Right back at you.